everyone, Ogre27 Kane here today, and this week's game of the week is Hammerwatch 2. Let's do a real quick overview and figure out what this game is all about. Well, this is a top-down action RPG, and as you can see here, it has a beautiful open-world aesthetic with wonderful pixelated art style. Now, this package does come physically with Hammerwatch 1 and 2, Hammerwatch 1 being more of a dungeon crawler floor-to-floor level, where this is an open world more like Diablo style. I personally prefer Hammerwatch 2 a lot more, so this video is going to be based on that game alone. Now, this package comes physically with both Hammerwatch 1 and 2 on the cartridge. Both of them do require some small updates, but they're around $40 and I think it's worth the price tag. There's well over 30 hours of gameplay involved in just Hammerwatch 2, so let's do the gameplay. Well, as I kinda stated already, the gameplay is a top-down action open-world RPG. What's cool about this game is that it really does kind of have the Skyrim aesthetic. It kind of turns you loose in the world and you do a few quests to figure out the mechanics to game and how everything works, but once you figure out all of that, it kind of just turns you loose, and I absolutely love this. There is a hub world that has all these other areas connected to it, and there are some much more difficult areas and some much easier areas, and there's a certain quest line that you're supposed to follow. But you have a ton of freedom and you can kind of jump around and do whatever quest you want to. Some of the items, like the hook shot, require you to do this in a systematic order, but if you're smart and you look for other things out in the world, you might find that hook shot somewhere else. One of the things I really love about the gameplay in this game is that it's very much like the original Zelda. Yes, there is this open world and a linear path that it wants you to take, but you're not forced to it, and because of that, it really encourages exploration and you can power level or get further ahead of where you thought you were supposed to be. At the same turnaround, you can go all the way to the end of the game and figure out how to beat that early. There's a lot of freedom with this game, and the storyline isn't that important, so let's do the story now. So speaking of story, there's really not a lot going on here. This game takes place directly after the first Hammerwatch after you defeat the Red Dragon. You come out of the tower and you head back to town and get in touch with everybody that you were in contact with before. They give you new missions and new quests, and you're trying to stop somebody from taking over the world and help out the former king, essentially a rebellion that's going on. But other than that, you spend the majority of the game doing side quests and other things. Not very much to it, so let's move on to the combat. So the combat in this game is very hit and miss. It's sort of a twin-stick shooter, but it has a lot of different RPG elements that you can incorporate, such as different abilities. Now, this is all hinged, as you can see, upon the direction in which your character faces, and I did find myself a lot of times getting confused because your character is so small. It's really hard to tell where you're facing even with that directional line, and when you get surrounded by a ton of enemies, it can be overwhelming. Other than that though, the combat is very fast-paced and frenetic, and the game offers you a ton of variation with what you can do with those abilities and moves. There's a bunch of different classes, wizards, paladins, as you can see here I chose the ranger, but there's a lot of other fun classes to choose from and things to do. The abilities now that you get, you won't really see until later on, so you may have to experiment and spend 5 or 10 hours with each class to figure out what you like. This is a little bit annoying, but not really that bad considering it encourages you to want to play the game through several times. The last thing I need to mention about combat is that your ranged attacks, especially as a ranger here, utilize your stamina as well as your evasion, while your physical attacks don't. This is kind of a weird mechanic to me and it's taken me a little while to adjust, but let's move on to graphics and animations now. So as far as the graphics and animations go, they're absolutely beautiful. You can see this world is very vibrant and colorful and there's a lot going on. The animation quality is top-notch too, as all of the characters have tons of frames of movement. Now, that being said, I need to discuss the performance in this game. The performance in this game is pretty abysmal at times. There are a lot of frame drops going on in areas that don't make sense, and I had a ton of crashes with this game. Luckily, there's a generous autosave feature and you can save at any point and any time you want, but it was something that went on in the back of my mind all the way through this game, and that's kind of worrisome. I don't know if that'll get remedied with a patch in the future, but it is something to keep your eyes on, and it could bother you as it did me. Well, let's move on now to controls and audio. And in this category, folks, once again were a little contentious. As it is a twin-stick shooter, those controls can get a little confusing at times, and you do have the ability to rebind any of your controls or buttons at any point to anything you want. Items, abilities, weapons, you name it. I messed up and didn't figure this out for a while, and I kept rebinding buttons to the wrong things and couldn't use potions and couldn't use items, and it really frustrated me. Once I figured all of this out, it wasn't a problem anymore. So I think we should touch a little bit on the audio here, and I absolutely love the audio in this game, and I think they did a fantastic job. This game has a very ambient soundtrack, and it reminds me a lot of Skyrim in the open world. So I think we're going to show a little bit of that off because I really enjoyed the sound. Pretty awesome chill soundtrack if you ask me, and it kind of plays around in the background the whole time you're playing through the world. I am going to show some of the more intense music here at the end of the video with a boss fight, and it kind of highlights some of the sound effects. So let's get into conclusion now. Well, in conclusion, this game is a hard recommendation because of the performance issues. If you're like me and you really like action RPGs and you really love the open world aesthetic, it's worth suffering through because there is a fantastic gem of a game right here. I will probably play this game through multiple times and I love it. But I can understand if this game would frustrate a lot of people and it's not going to be very high on most people's lists. The performance issues need fixed and the developer needs to know that these are really kind of a problem and a hindrance to enjoying what is otherwise one of the best little action open world RPGs I've ever played. Well, that's going to do it for today's Game of the Week. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, and let's start out 2024 the right way.
Can't do that yet.